utilizing transformation and enthusiasm. And I want to tell you a little bit, for those of you who don't know my story, I started out as a teacher.
Hey, Lauren.
Hey, I'm here. Yay! It worked.
It's working. Thank goodness. Okay.
14 minutes to spare. We're good.
Yeah, totally. Plenty of time. Do you know how to do the screen share and all of that?
Yes, I did the session the other day, so I think I see the tools up here on the left, the chat, the screen share.
Oh, Katie's here. Hey, Katie.
Yay! Is that Katie?
And then a year of sabbatical where I went out and I had the opportunity.
Okay, I was in full-on panic mode. It's working. Hallelujah. All right.
And I had the opportunity to be in our region with about 40 different regional schools. And the whole time I was doing
All right,
it,
so that's good. So I guess while we present,
but I realized
we'll just, on my other screen, I guess I'll watch the chat to see if they have questions during it. Is that?
That sounds good. And I have my, I have another computer set up, so I'll just stay on the whole time. And if I see something pop up, I'll kind of
Interrupt me.
at a good point, at a good stopping point or whatever. I'll like make note of the big questions, so you don't have to worry about flipping back and forth. If that helps.
Sounds good.
We have to send a letter out to all of our students to say, hey, we're failing school. The other two elementaries in town are
Okay, I'm gonna mute myself so I can hear the.
Me too. The keynote.
We work together. we utilize Twitter in our building.
It looks like it's going to go over a little bit. Do you all want me to still try to stick in my time of the 9 to 9:35, or can I go over just a little bit?
A couple weeks ago, I put out this tweet. It said, "Hey,
I say for sure go over, and that that PDL whatever I'm doing, I can just shorten that, so everybody gets their time. And I posted in the chat feed on our live video that we were going to be we start after the keynote. So yeah, I'll just adjust, and if we need to just take it out, even because I don't know how long she's going to go, we can take it out.
Okay, that sounds good.
And that's
Thank you.
So awesome. Of course, you're also your gift every once in a while, but it talks, all of these different people. And so when I did this presentation last week for our district,
Okay, looks like we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. Can you guys hear me? Sorry, learning as I go. Okay, welcome to our morning session for libraries. I'm super pumped to be sharing here with Lauren and Katie. And we're getting a little bit of a late start, so I'm going to shorten some of the stuff I was going to talk about in the middle, but you will still have all the resources, and feel free to connect with me. Let's fly closer to the sun together, and we'll get Lauren started.
Yeah. Okay, so I think everybody can hear me. I think I'm unmuted. I think you can see me. So we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning. My name is Lauren Rata, and I'm the Library Media Specialist and Student Technology Coordinator at Camden Station Elementary. It's a small elementary school in Oldham County in Crestwood, Kentucky. So that's about 20 minutes outside of Louisville in the suburbs. I'm really excited to get started this morning, and we will talk about during my 35-minute session, effective digital feedback. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen with you so that we can get started with our presentation this morning. Make sure. Let's see, there we go. I think I have it up correctly. All right, so I'm kind of watching myself also on the same link that you are to ensure that everything's where it needs to be. So it looks great to me. So let's go ahead and get started. Also, let me know at any time over there on that chat. If you have questions during it, that's great. I'm very flexible. I can stop and we can talk about whatever you'd like to see from me. So just let me know. And if not, I'll have time for questions at the end. So Again, good morning. This is the LMS track for the Kentucky Go Digital participants. I'm excited that you're tuning in. Today, I'm going to take you on a feedback journey. So we will touch on first the research behind the power of feedback and the elements of effective feedback. And then we'll really dive and focus on the actual digital platforms that are out there that can help support you as an LMS in the library with giving feedback, but also you can use with your teachers to help them give students that feedback. So like I said, there I am. Please make sure you follow me on Twitter, and I'd love to follow you back. And I'll also have my email at the end if you have any questions. So let's start by looking at why should we give students feedback? As an LMS, remember, we are those instructional partners with teachers. It's important that we also give students feedback in the library as well as in the classroom to raise that student achievement. So I'd like to first kind of look at that research. Why should we do it? I'm sure that all of you are very familiar with John Heidi. He's a well-known researcher who has done many studies in the area of education. The particular study that I'd like to share with you was designed as what we call a meta-meta study, where he collected, compared, and analyzed the findings of nearly 50,000 previous studies in education, and then brought the data together in a way that was seemingly comprehensible. So when looking at the findings, he found effect sizes to report, well, how impactful are these various interventions and educational practices? An effect size of 0.20 was considered a small effect. It really didn't have a lot of influence on students and their achievement. A 0.50 was considered medium. And then a 0.80 is considered large, or it's a great piece of information that will really affect that student achievement. So as you can see here on the slide, the effect size of feedback was actually a 0.73. So that fits between that medium and large effect size, but really closer to the large effect size. So that's why it's so important that we give students feedback. And it actually, of all the different studies he did, it's actually considered one of the top 10 influences. But we have to provide the right feedback to support student outcomes. Just because research says that giving students feedback raises student achievement, that doesn't mean that we can just talk to them about their work and they'll achieve then at a higher level. There is a right and a wrong way to give feedback. So let's take a look at some of those. So some of those positive elements I'd like to focus on. I have the don'ts here, but just like with kids, I like to just kind of focus on the do's and model the right way instead of just the don'ts. But if you're someone that wants to see what the opposite is, that's there as well for you. So let's first look at the do's. When you're giving feedback, make sure that you target the task. That means you are mentioning the actual skill, possibly the standard, objective learning goal, whatever you like to call it, I can statement in your district that you are asking students to meet. So you can be really specific and say things like, you've done an excellent job supporting your argument with evidence from the text. The second element, be sure that you're being specific when you're giving students feedback. If students have a misconception, address it specifically by responding to their work. Or possibly if they didn't complete the assignment, make sure that you repeat those directions that they did not complete if they didn't complete all parts of the task. Providing feedback should be often and immediate. Now, with the technology platforms we're going to discuss here in just a moment, they really allow students to see your feedback right there in real time as you're writing it, they see it, or within seconds. And as we all know, technology is a game changer. It's much more effective than the past. I remember going around and having at the end of the day, all the kids put their notebooks in a bin, and then I'd take home anywhere from 25 to 28 notebooks at night, and I would write in them and give them feedback, and then I'd give them out the next day, or maybe I'd forget, and then they would refer back to them a few days later. That was not immediate. And so it's really neat that students can see it right there in real time or within seconds. They can see the feedback right there in class, or maybe that night when I'm responding back to them. Also, though, that immediate or often. So if you need to, set goals for yourself. Maybe every day you have 30 students. So then you make sure every day that you possibly give 6 students a day some feedback so that you're reaching all students that week. So remember to do that. And last but not least, make sure that element focus on process. And so talk to them about, well, how did they get to the answer? What strategy did they use? Or maybe what choices did they make to complete the work? Do not just tell them their overall grade. That's, even though they want to see it, that's not what's important, and that's truly not going to help them grow. So the most important part to me as an LMS is, well, now I understand feedback. I know why it's important. I know some of those tools and elements of how to give it, but what digital platforms can help you to give effective feedback to your students? So in the next few slides, I'd like to share with you 3 different platforms that I go to on a daily basis with kids in the library or with collaborating with teachers that allow students to get that feedback in any content area. And really, these can be used across any grade level. Although I'm K through 5, I could see myself using this in grades 6 through 12 as well, or even in adults with coaching and supporting the different teachers within my building. I'll share with you one at a time. First, I will just give you an overview of the app or site in case you're not familiar with it. If you are, then we'll kind of just get another brief insight into it. I'll tell you the features and functions of the platform. Next, I will show you a real life example of how I've used it in the last few months with students in the library or with collaborating with a teacher. And then last but not least, I will actually get on the platform and show you how it looks when I'm looking at the students' work, and then also how I can give them feedback so that you can get started using this right away. Let's go ahead and look at the first platform today, ClassKick. I'm sure many of you are familiar with ClassKick. It's available on iOS. You can use it on Chromebooks as an app, or even on the web for a computer in your browser. Students can practice skills or concepts or show what they know in any content area. So it could just be an activity that day or an assignment. It could also, though, be that you're doing a formative assessment to prove what they've learned that day, or even a pre-assessment, anything you want to use it as. It's free for educators. We always like free things. No student login is required if you don't want them to. You can if you'd like through Google, but I use this mostly with kindergartners, and they don't really use their logins much yet. And so it's nice that the teacher and I could create an account together. We just give students a code. And since we've added the students' names in our teacher account, all they have to do is identify themselves, and they can get started on that assessment or on that activity that day. My favorite part about ClassKick, though, is it allows you to give feedback in real time. So literally, as students are working, we can stand there with our devices and we can type comments right there on their slides as they're working. We can give audio feedback for some of the non-readers, or we can draw right there and help them circle and work out a problem in real time. Very powerful tool. If you haven't used it already, I recommend you check it out. And so let's look at the second part. So how have I used this in the last few months so that you can kind of get a bigger picture of how that feedback can work using ClassKick? Like I mentioned, it allows both readers and non-readers to work independently on tasks. Also, it has the feature of raising a hand so that you know who you can help at that time. Also, if you want to unlock a feature, students can also support each other if that's something you try. Like I said, you can give it in real time using audio to grow in all content areas. And so I'd like to quickly show you a kindergarten math CFA example. To give you some background knowledge, I've been working really closely with a specific kindergarten teacher, and she had 2-to-1 ratio of iPads, and then she transitioned with an initiative about a month ago and now has a 1-to-1 Chromebook initiative. And so I'm excited to continue with her next year. We kind of just got started, but her team, they do everything together. They plan. They did paper-based common formative assessments, and she wanted to try those digital ones to kind of see the impact. And so let me back out here, and I'd like to show you the actual example on her ClassKick account. And so this is what her teacher dashboard looks like. And this is Unit 4 Shapes Common and Formative Assessment from back in February that I'd like to show you. These are the 4 questions we had that students would go through one at a time. And let me go to the View Student Work so that you can see. This is what, while students are working and we're going around the classroom with our devices, this is what we see. We could, if they were working right now, you would literally see on these slides the students circling the best fit answer or listening to something or responding. But what I'd like to show you is a student's work. And so I'm going to go down to, I think Cameron is what I wanted to show you. So let me look, and as you can see over here, this is how you know which child it is. And so I'd like to show you Cameron. He got one incorrect. And so we were able to right there catch it. So question 2 here. The students, and it'll bring up that slide specifically. Sorry, there's a little bit of a delay here. So here is Cameron's question number 2. And like I mentioned, I love Class Kick because yes, we have the text where they can read the directions, but we still have some non-readers. And so here we could also put a text box in and record our voice so kids could be independent on this assessment. And then they were always trained that if we wanted to give them feedback, they would know to look for our feedback with the purple star. And so they knew that these were the directions to read the question. But then this means that Miss Rata or Miss Sanders or the aide Miss Nichter possibly gave them some feedback. So then the student could go in the slide, and when they push play, I will stop talking so you can hear. You'll hear my voice of where I gave this child feedback so that they could instantly go back and fix their misconception.
Cameron, please check this question. It asks to circle the shape that has 4 equal sides. Think about that word equal. That means they're all the same length. Which of these shapes in front of us has 4 sides that are equal?
So notice also there that I was really specific, which is one of our elements, so that the student knew exactly what equal meant, the vocabulary, and he was able to go back and fix that instantly, which really helps raise the student achievement. So just an idea that you could try. The third part of looking at Class Kick is I'd like to show you, well, how is this done? So after you post an assignment, the students are in, they're working. All you have to do as a teacher now is, let's say, I noticed here, although Gus got this one correct, so I can click on, sorry, a little bit of a delay again. Let me click on the second slide here. So let's say I needed to help Carter with this question. Let's say he was not sure, and so maybe I could help him. All I have to do is take my teacher tools up here. And here's the toolbar. So this lets you move around the screen. This lets you literally draw a pin on top of it. And so let's say the student was struggling. And so maybe I wanted to help them determine importance. I could click on this, and that's exactly what they would see on theirs. And so they can see 4 equal sides. I could write a text box if I wanted to and say, what does equal mean to you? And post that for the child to see there in real time. And then also if I wanted to, I could record my voice, which like I mentioned is great for those non-readers because not all of our students are able to participate independently sometimes. So all you do is click the add audio button. And if you click this start recording button, it will come up and let you know you're recording. So I could give them feedback like that right through the device, stop and save, and it instantly pops up here. And so the student knows I'm trying to help them there. Like I mentioned, we train the students that if we gave them feedback, we would always put, and it was it was audio, we would put that asterisk. So I like to just that purple star there so that that student knows that's Miss Rata giving you feedback so they know to check it. And so there we go. So that's Class Kick. So let's go on back and look at our next platform now. So let me transition back. The next one I'd like to share with you today is Seesaw. And so Seesaw has been really effective in our school. We really like to use it, especially with the primary, so really K1 and 2. Seesaw, it's available on iOS as an app, on Chromebooks as an app, also on the web for computers, so you can use this in various ways. This is very similar where students can practice skills or concepts through activities, but then also they can show what they know if you want to use it as a formative or summative assessment tool. It's free for educators, students, and families, which is neat because it's very powerful that you can share this with parents at home. We have grandparents who get connected, and so that also helps to tie that piece, that line of communication so they can see and get a look of what's going on in the classroom. Student login is easy. We prefer with the young ones, we just go under our account and under settings. It'll let you go to your settings and print out a class QR code. Students quickly scan it and it takes them into that Seesaw class. It keeps them logged in so that there is no login required. You can also, if you prefer, get a class code for them to get in. You can invite them by email, or they can even use their Google login. So many ways to get into Seesaw, but yet super easy so that all levels of learners can join this. And then yet again, it allows teachers to give that feedback though by text or audio, which we really prefer. Even some of our first graders are non-readers, so that's really helpful for us. So let's look at our second part. I want to show you an example of how you can give feedback in Seesaw. And my specific example is with a first grade classroom that I collaborate teacher with. And then I'll show you last but not least within here how to actually do that. So let me go up to my Seesaw tab. Here we go. And refresh a little bit just so you can see. Right now I'm in Goodwin's Growers, a first grade teacher that I work with. And here you can see her dashboard with all of her activities. And I apologize. It sounds like they're doing some construction up above me. So sorry if that's distracting. I'll just keep going. But the one I want to really quickly show you is an assignment or an activity that we posted called What Was Your Favorite? And so here in What Was Your Favorite, students, they were writing opinion pieces. And so they were kind of just practice writing their opinion by responding to, they had some options here about was their favorite the exhibit at the Louisville Science Center on their field trip, or they could also respond to their favorite math Olympic game and why it was their favorite. The examples I'd like to show you, as you can see then below, I can see all the student responses from the class. Let's look at Carter's first. So this is the first example of how you could give feedback within Seesaw. If you scroll down, this is my teacher view. As you can see, the parent is in, the parent loved it or liked it, which is cool to see families getting on here. Another student even commented and gave him some feedback, but then also I was able to give text feedback. So I was able to quickly comment and tell Carter how I really liked how he used details. But then I also gave him some feedback about rereading his work to help him with punctuation. Another way you can give feedback in Seesaw is also through audio. And so let's look at, I think I gave to Logan here. Let me find Logan. Logan, there he is. Logan, I gave him some audio feedback because he prefers audio feedback. And so as you can see, his mom also connected and was able to see this post. Super neat. Kids love when they can see that. Miss Goodwin liked it, his teacher. And then here he can play my feedback and listen to it. So all he has to do is click.
Logan, I liked how you use a sentence stem like we talked about. My favorite math game is. Also, I did notice that you said that it was your favorite because it was.
So you kind of get the gist. So students can listen to that. So you might be wondering, well, how can I give feedback in Seesaw? And so after you've created your Seesaw account, you've added your students, they're connected, you've posted, I prefer, they can post in the journal here, which is just on the main dashboard, but I like to do it in activities so that they're all kind of grouped and the responses are all together in one. So let's just stay here, I guess, with what was your favorite. And I can look at, there are 16 responses there from students. And so all you do is you click on the kids' work. So let's just look at Allison's, the first one here. And I can read her work. And then all I have to do is, oh, looks like one of her classmates already gave her some feedback. I can click this comment button. That's very simple. And so I can either tell her I liked the way, and I can type right in here and give her feedback and click that post button. Or I can also comment, and instead of typing it in, it has that little microphone here. I can also record my voice, so doing that voice commenting or the voice feedback for your students as well. So you can click that. It's very easy. It starts recording as it does like that. And then you click stop, it processes, you can preview it, and if you want to keep that and give that to that student, all you have to do is click the green check, and that feedback, I'm going to delete it, so I don't want her to get that. All you have to do is click that mark, and that student will get your feedback digitally as well there. So that is my second platform, and the last one that I'd like to share with you. Let's get back to, sorry, there we go. The very last platform I'd like to share with you is Google Classroom. And specifically with Google Classroom, I like to use the extension by Alice Keeler called Webcam Record. I find it very helpful than just commenting within Google Docs or Google Slides and giving students feedback that way. So Google Classroom, it's available on, as you all know, on iOS as an app, on the Chromebooks, on the web for computers. But then Webcam Record is an extension through Google, and so that is only available on Chrome. Students, though, can practice skills or concepts or show what they know in any content area, so for the feedback. It's free. It's all free, which is great as always. And then also, If you are trying to do just the Google Classroom, students have to first join your classroom with the class code, or you can invite them by email. But then the actual extension that I'll use here and show you today, that Alice Keeler Webcam Record, it is free and you download it within the Chrome Web Store. And so that link is here. So if you need to, you can click on that link and download it right there on your device as well. So what I'd like to show you is how I use it. I've used it in the library. I pull, like I'm sure many of you do, small groups for some literature circles and clubs for enrichment. The specific example I'm going to show you is I decided to pull both 4th and 5th grade girls, and we did a digital book club. And so I'll show you our Google Classroom on Wishtree, and then I'll show you how I gave students that feedback in Google Slides, but then also using that webcam record. So let me back out here and show you. So this is our Google Classroom on Wishtree, our literature circle group. And then all we did is I posted each week what reading we were going to do and when it was due. The students had their roles here, and all they had to do was click here to get to the Google Slides of our week 3 and their roles, and then they could participate right here in this Google Slides document. And we could collaborate all together. And so students, the first slide's always their roles they could see. And then I'd like to go down and show you, let's see, this student, here we go. The discussion leader that week, I believe it was Kate. And so her role was to type in discussion questions she wanted to plan for when we met. And so those could be questions of things that were confusing to her about the book. It could be that she was kind of assessing us to make sure with our comprehension, anything she wanted to do. So she typed right directly in there, and then I was able to give her feedback before we met together to check in. And so just talking to the kids, I asked them, would you rather me comment? So if I wanted to comment, I would usually just click here. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's the next part. But this is, let me show you quickly the webcam record. So the student, all they had to do was click on this link, and it's going to redirect me, of course. So let me go to it. And then the quality is not the best, but it's kind of pixelated, but the students still really enjoyed it. So this is my video.
You did a great job this week as discussion leader. I like how you asked specific questions that will really help us all think deeply about.
So you get the gist there. And so I was able to quickly record myself at home, but I could give her that instant feedback. She was able to see that at home before we met the next day, and she expressed that she really enjoyed that than just me commenting. So let's talk about how could you give feedback through Google Classroom. Of course, you could just give students feedback on their work, but if it's an assignment altogether like this, all you have to do is click somewhere within the document or within the slides and click this button here to the comments thread and click comment. I could give her text comment. So, Kate, I like how you ... and give her some specific feedback. But also, like I mentioned, my very, very, very favorite part though is giving feedback with that webcam record extension. So how you get that is if you go here to the Chrome Web Store, and you have to, I've already downloaded, but you click here, add to Chrome, and then verify it. The webcam record is great because it allows you to use your camera right there on your device. It is a 30-second limit, so it really helps you to minimize your feedback, keep it short and sweet so that you keep your students' attention at the same time. I love it because it automatically saves in 2 places. First, it copies the link to your clipboard so you can instantly paste it anywhere, but also it saves it to your Google Drive and timestamps it, which is super helpful to go back to. My one caveat is make sure though that, as it says over here, make sure that when it makes that folder in your Google Drive, that you change those permissions to anyone with the link can view. That's super, super important so that when students click on it, they can watch your feedback. And so as you can see, here's my drive I have open also, and it automatically makes this folder here in your drive of the webcam record. So when you click into it, you can see all of my feedback, and it even timestamps it so you know which days you had it. But like I said, remember to definitely change permissions in that folder by, let's see if I can look at it real quick. Let's see, so if you go to the Get Shareable link, see mine's on anyone can view right now. Ooh, of course, it's hiding under all this, but there's also additional permissions and you can change that. So make sure that you've changed that. So let's go back to me actually showing you now how to either comment within something on Google Classroom, or also how to add that video. And so all you have to do after you have where you, maybe I want to give her feedback right here, you can either click the comment button there and say, I like how you blah, blah, blah. I like to even, so students get notified. Let's see, person, I got Allison. And here at Stu. I even like to add that plus sign in their name and assign it to them, so it will then give them an email letting them know I gave them feedback as well. So that's super helpful. But let's say I wanted to record myself instead. All I have to do is go up here to my tools. These are my extensions, and go to that webcam record extension. And when I click it, all I have to do is click start. The first time you might have to allow your access to your camera, but as you can see, there it goes, popped up. And so all I have to do, it automatically starts recording the 30 seconds. I can give the student the feedback, let them know how they're doing. And when I'm done, I click the finish button and it automatically processes. And as you can see, it says that URL is saved in my clipboard, and it's also saved in my drive. And so all I have to do now is click comment, and I can say, hey, check out, can't type today, this video feedback. And I can just Command V or Control V. It automatically has that link to that quick video I just made. I can even assign it to that child if I want to. Still assign it to them. And I would click that comment, and then that student can access my feedback just the way we did this one. So super helpful. I absolutely love that webcam record extension to help give students that video feedback. And like I said, they really enjoy it too. Let's see. Let's get back to our presentation. I've got here, I think it looks about 5 minutes left. And so I want to know now, you can comment right there within the YouTube link. What questions do you have about these tools? Or even possibly, how can you see yourself using these tools in the library or collaborating with teachers in the classroom? So I'd love to hear both what questions you have that I could answer right now about any of these feedback tools. Or like I said, I'd love to know also possibly how you might see yourself using them. I love ideas.
So we did have a question pop up in the chat a little while ago about, it was while you were talking about ClassKick, and let's see, it was Deborah Younger asked if you could connect ClassKick to Google Classroom. And I'm just wondering if Seesaw has that ability too.
Sorry, having a little bit of issues. There we go. Can you hear me now? Turn camera.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I've got it. Okay, I think I see myself. Okay, so you know, I really have not tried to connect them. I didn't even think about that, since I kind of use them with different, so ClassKick, I use them in the primary grades, and also Seesaw I do too. And so those younger primary grades, they don't have a Google Classroom. So that's something I'd have to explore myself. I'd like to know, anyone else out there, do you know through the chat, have you connected Seesaw or ClassKick using your Google Classroom? Let's see, I'm seeing some ideas, but I'm not seeing any answers. So I will look into that and get back to you all. I'm not quite sure. I could see, you know, posting a link in there in your Google Classroom to get to it, but I don't know if they directly connect. I also see, it looks like, oh great, summer book clubs, maybe starting some of those. Maybe you could use some of these for that as an LMS to support yourself in the library. Digital book clubs. Let me know. And that template that you saw there, I got that from someone else online that was shared. So if you would like the template to that digital book club through Google Slides, I'd love to share it. And then all I do is I duplicate it every single week and rename it and switch the roles around, and it's been a great tool and resource. Let's see, any other questions or I don't really see any. So I think my time might be up. If you all think of any other questions that you have, please feel free, like I said, to reach out to me at my email. You can tweet me, whatever's best for you. And that's, I see a great idea. Here we go, a faculty book club. I think it's great when you model stuff with your teacher so they can see how, I can easily use that with my students too. So love that. I wish I would have thought of that before we left for summer to do a summer book club, but there's always next summer, right? Okay, well, then I will mute myself and I will pass the torch to the next presenter then.
Okay, guys, I am up next. Thank you, Lauren. And the stuff that she was talking about and at the end with Google Classroom and her literature circles was amazing. And it kind of lends itself to what I'm getting ready to talk about, which is digital notebooks. And I do see people in the chat saying, please share that. And that's awesome that we can share those things through Google. So just something to think about there. Now I'm going to shorten my sessions so that we can start with Katie right about 10:45. So I guess in the chat, I kind of want some feedback. I have two topics that I was going to talk about. I'm going to talk about digital notebooks and project-based learning. Does anybody have a preference on what I sort of maybe cover in a little more depth? Because I might find myself moving through something a little bit faster just so that I don't take up any of Katie's time. I don't know if anybody's got a preference. So I'm just kind of watching the chat on another computer to see. So digital notebooks, I'll get started with that in just a second, are a great way to help manage project-based learning and literature circles even, and all kinds of things. I'm doing a longer session, or whole 35-minute session this afternoon about digital notebooks and how to make them. So if you're looking at that literature circles example that Lauren just shared and you're thinking, I want to make one myself, you can check that out this afternoon. So kind of a shameless plug, but I'll share everything that I have. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm not really seeing any feedback here, so I'm just going to go ahead and we'll see how fast I can get through things. And you can always come back to this session. It's being recorded, and you can pause me, which is probably helpful. I know I'm going to go back and go back through Lauren's part later and find out more about that add-on she was talking about. I need to process that because that's a cool add-on. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and walk you guys through a little bit of information about interactive notebooks. So we're going to get that like crazy view here in just a second. Okay, and I'm going to make sure that that's shown up. Okay, so on this first slide here, it's going to take a second to load. Making sure I'm the right. Okay, I'm hoping that you guys can see my screen right now with the presentation. And on the presentation at the bottom, I have a bit.ly. It's bit.ly KY Go Digital Note, and that should be really kind of throughout the presentation. But what that's going to do is it's going to let you make a copy of this presentation so that you have it and you can kind of play around with it or use that information later. So if I am going too fast, you can come back and grab that presentation. It'll just copy that right into your own Google Drive. So my name's Heidi Neltner. Currently, I'm a digital learning coach in Fort Thomas. I was a librarian for 6 years. And it was my favorite job ever. You guys are my favorite people ever. So I'm so excited to be sharing here. And just to kind of talk a little bit about notebooks and digital notebooks, the first thing to talk about is interactive notebooks. And traditionally, interactive notebooks are student assembled notebooks that have a lot of foldables and a lot of things that allow kids to manipulate and move ideas around. And it's real tactile. They include a lot of cutting, folding, coloring, and gluing. And in the end, you have really almost a work of art that students have created. And I've done some research on them, and I found a nice sort of research paper by Carolyn Wist, and you can get the link here. And it's the interactive notebook is a strong tool to use and increase and strengthen input into the brain. Interactive notebooks are successful because they use both right and left hemispheres to help sort, categorize, and implement new knowledge. So, I mean, there's a lot, not a ton of research, I guess, published about these, but a lot of teachers that use them. So with the digital interactive notebook, when you take that digitally, and you saw that in Lauren's example of the literature circles, it really eliminates the mess. As a former high school English teacher, when I first saw digital interactive notebooks, I was like, what are you guys doing with all that glue? And with this interactive notebook, the digital version, you can include all of these activities, but you eliminate pages sticking together and time spent maybe coloring things that, it could be a little bit of wasted time if you're just coloring a ton of stuff and cutting out a ton of stuff. But you want to really capitalize on that time with things like graphic organizers. I'm a huge Marzano person. And so I really feel there's a lot of power in graphic organizers. If you just Google Marzano, you'll find all kinds of cool information there. And you can capitalize on the use of color, of images, video, different activities. And the digital version allows for collaboration. You saw in Lauren's presentation that there was a lot of good teacher feedback that can happen through commenting and that awesome add-on that I need to learn more about from Alice Keeler. So definitely the digital version brings us into the 21st century where we can create and collaborate in a digital environment. I have some examples here that I'm going to share with you that I've done, and I am happy to share all kinds of things. So if you see something that I'm talking about and you want it, you can email me and to my Fort Thomas email. You can post it on Twitter, and I will be happy to share anything that I have. So the first example here is a PBL example. And if I just click on the picture, it's going to take me out to this drive here. And it's taken a second to load. But what you have is the notebook. Here's it's called Creature Powers. One of my fourth grade teachers did this. And there's a lot of information that would need to be sort of filled in. But, we would have the driving question that we would add and what kind of project non-negotiables are there. They did a whole group activity with Creature Powers where they watched videos and identified different things. So they had a graphic organizer that they filled in for the creature, and they were looking at different ways, different cool things about different animals. This is all sort of inspired by Wildcrats, by the way. This class then took a trip to the zoo, and while they were at the zoo, they had groups of people that they worked with, and they were studying a specific zoo animal and taking notes on that zoo animal and observations while they were at the zoo. I also always into these notebooks put a place for rubrics, and I think that that helps the student to come back to what is expected of me. There's always a place for what you know, what you need to know. And then for, the library side of things, we for sure need to get into good quality research. And through the digital notebook, I walk the kids a lot of times through like the Big 6 or Super 3 or guided inquiry processes, where we talk about like what are the quality examples of information that we should be using. And then, of course, there's note-taking skills and graphic organizers again. And then if I can kind of skim down here, I get to the project part. Oh, and I shouldn't skip this part, but also in these digital notebooks, I build in time for evaluation where they either have to go conference with their teacher or go conference with their librarian over the research. So building the librarian into the research part and collaborating with the teacher really creates a dynamic experience for the student. With projects here, then this particular group had to develop a project using design thinking, and they were going to create a Wildcrat style video. And, or they could have done, there were some other project types that they could have done, like Scratch Junior presentations, using the PBS Scratch Junior. And they could have used Bloxels, for example, but they had to storyboard their information. So in a lot of these digital notebooks, you'll see a digital notebook, and then we just get down to evaluation with the teacher, and they stop throughout the process and conference. So that's just one of the examples of how you can use that for project-based learning. So let me get back here into where we were. Okay, another example that I have here is for design thinking. I use a lot of design thinking. Design thinking is amazing in the makerspace. If you have a makerspace, I found when I started my makerspace at Johnson Elementary, in the very beginning with all the kids, it was kind of just all of a sudden we used a ton of toilet paper rolls, or we lost a lot of paper in the process. And so kind of slowing kids down and having them use design thinking practices along with your makerspace information is going to be helpful in establishing guidelines and practices that students can use. So here is an example of a digital interactive notebook for Little Bits. And in this, the teacher worked with me, and they also worked with the art teacher to where the students developed artwork, and then they had to make it move. And so with this, they had, again, project non-negotiables. We have a rubric or a timeline that gets filled in so that the students can see what the expectations are when things are due, especially if you're moving between two different groups. And then we get into the iteration process where students are trying to figure out what kind of project they're making and why. They might do a little bit of research on things like Little Bits. Here's a video on what design thinking is. This is for an elementary grade. They do some brainstorming and imagining. They create and evaluate, so they have somebody look at their designs and they get constructive criticism about their designs. And so all this digital interactive notebook is it's allowing the teachers to check in with each other, and it's allowing the students to work through the process of creating and making, which is really, I think, an important thing for students to be able to do. The last notebook I was going to share is, actually, this is the second to last, is one for digital storytelling. This is great for classroom or library, and I'm going to be talking about digital storytelling this afternoon. But if we take a look at this notebook, I'll take a second to load here. This notebook just walks students through a lot of the writing process. And so what you might see is maybe in class, students might write the story and then work with the librarian or the makerspace materials to create their digital story. So with the digital story, they have to brainstorm different things. Again, we're just using all kinds of graphic organizers where they brainstorm what their story is going to be about. They're kind of drilling down into different ideas to narrow their focus. And then they start brainstorming world and character. We have our traditional story plan with the elements, rising action, climax, that kind of thing. And then throughout this part, there's the conference that they have to do. Now, when I used this with students, they ended up drafting in all different kinds of ways. Some of them hand wrote and took photos and imported their photos into the slide. Some of them did things like typed right on here. Some of them typed in a different app and copied and pasted. Some of them voice recorded. So the draft took on many different kinds of formats. And then they had a conference with me over editing. They had to edit first and then conference. So you can see that the digital interactive notebook can really just be a guide for you as far as, and your students, as far as what the next step is in the learning process. And there's just so much potential with these interactive notebooks. The last one that I had to share with you is this one on, I just did a generic one here on growth mindset. And for this one, I did all kinds of different activities that you could see the potential in different activities, because so far I've really just shown a lot of graphic organizers. So this one utilizes more interactive content. And for example, here we have sort of a Cornell Notes style graphic organizer. And what the students have to do is they click and read an article here. So you can link articles, you can link resources inside. On slide 2, there's a video for them to watch. And then there's, they have to watch that video with intention and type out main ideas. So they can't just like passively view. There's an activity in mind for that. You can also do different sorting activities where the students would grab these pieces. And these are the activities that I'm going to show you kind of this afternoon. If you join in on that session, they can grab these little pieces and drag them into the area where it would go. I also make use of Flippity. Flippity is a great add-on where you can click and go to a link here. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. And then the student would have maybe a different task associated with the topic at hand, or they might have to turn and talk to a partner. So for example, if they're learning about growth mindset, they might say, okay, you have to create a Google sketch that demonstrates what you've learned about it, or you're going to do a Wii video, or you're going to do an Adobe post or an Adobe Spark video. So there's some different ways to use add-ons like Flippity, and Flippity is a great add-on. You just go to add-ons and actually Sheets to download that. Another one is this is like a secret message thing for an organizer. And what you would do is you would just grab this little viewer, and students would drag it around the slide until they find the hidden text. And then they can just read that text by using that finder. So that's another kind of fun little activity. I wouldn't use it all the time, but it's something that students might get a kick out of every now and then. And of course, we have the graphic organizer. One thing I should mention is it's helpful in these graphic organizers and in these digital notebooks to change the background color, because with color, students can create a visual map. I don't know how you guys were as students, but I remember when I was in high school, when I would take really hard tests, I would always close my eyes and visualize in my notes where that information was to help me recall it. And if we're just typing on a Google Doc, or if we're just typing in a note-taking app, we might not have those visual cues. So helping students learn how to add visual cues to their notes will help them recall the information a lot easier later. So that's just something to think of if you're making a notebook, and I'll kind of dig into that this afternoon if you're interested in that. So coming back here to the presentation. So I'm really getting through this a little bit faster than I thought I would, which is good. So just other ideas for those presentations. Let's see, get to slide 10. Other ideas to take it further. You might create your templates in a tool like Canva and insert them as backgrounds. That's what I do for a lot of the graphic organizers. You can insert timer videos for different tasks. So if students are doing a growth mindset activity and you want them to read an article and you want it to only take 15 minutes, you can just go right to YouTube and search 15-minute timer and insert it into their notebook and kind of give them some time area. This would be great if you were using this in a library on a fixed schedule, for example, where maybe you were using centers and the kids had to work a little bit more independently. You could add those kinds of self-pacing tools into the stuff, into your notebooks. You can include stop and conference directions, like I showed you in the PBL example. There could be a table of contents with hyperlinks to different sections. So if you were doing a literature circles interactive notebook, you might have on the very first slide a link that will take them right to their role page where they can fill in their information. And then you can encourage students to build their own graphic organizers, especially as they get older. We want to work on gradually releasing these skills over to students. It's all about quality note-taking. So if you can teach them how to create a graphic organizer, how to change the color of their slides, how to add in their own video content that will help them remember, it's going to really help for later on when they have to do this by themselves, maybe in the real world. This could be a great way to use research and teach research in the library, because it could be a collection spot for all of their resources that they need to come back to, all of their links, all their notes on their links, all of their videos that they're curating themselves. So for sure, gradually release this over to students, across years based on their age and based on what's acceptable. I'm seeing some questions here like, how do you keep them from deleting elements of a slide? So I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm a little type A. What I typically do is I download. So if I create a graphic organizer, let me see if I'll go back to this growth mindset one. If I create this graphic organizer, see, they could easily delete that. So what I would do is I would just go to File, Download As, JPEG, and that's going to download this specific slide as a JPEG. And then let me do that. So I'm saving that right to my downloads. Then I just insert a slide, a blank one. Let me change that to blank. And then I go to background, choose the image, and I'm just going to upload that image that I downloaded to my downloads, which would be, let me see if I can pull this real quick. Of course, I can't find it. Is it that one? No. I'm just going to pull in. I'm going to pull in Katie's. So you just pull that download right in, and it makes it the background, and then the kids can't easily delete those elements. So that's really, I think, helpful to do with little kids who might be happy clickers, or all of a sudden something's gone and they don't know where it is. So for graphic organizers specifically, I just download it and then insert it as the background. Let's see. Lisa's asking if I create the interactive notebooks in Google Slides or Docs. I create everything in actually Canva. Well, most of my stuff I'll create in Canva, and then I insert it into whichever platform I need. So if I'm using Seesaw, I just take images, and Lauren talked about Seesaw. I just take those images and drop them into Seesaw as needed. If I'm using slides with kids, then obviously it would go into slides. Or if I'm using Google Classroom, all my images go into slides. Or we're a one-to-one iPad district, and PowerPoint is a little better than slides on the iPad. So I use a lot of PowerPoint. And really, you can create everything in slides and just download those images if you need to. You can export it as a PDF if you need to print it. You can export it as a PowerPoint if you needed to do that. So the interactive notebook is pretty flexible in where you're creating it and how you're sharing it, which is another really powerful thing about it. Let's see. Am I missing any other questions? So that's like a lot of the big deal with the interactive notebook. If I come back real quick here, I've got just a couple more things to share about it. I did talk about Canva. If you're not using Canva, wow, what a tool. Let me see if I'm logged in here to pull it up real quick. Okay, so here's Canva. And Canva is a graphic design tool, and you can see here just from the screenshots that I have my little interactive notebooks already set up. And what I typically do is I use this 16:9 presentation, but you can use any style. Like the example that Lauren showed was just a US letter, and you can adjust your slides presentation to different sizes. So if you want it to be that like typical page view, you can do that. But I typically start my presentations here, and Canva makes you look smart, because I am not, you guys, a graphic organizer or graphic designer by any means. Definitely not a graphic organizer either, even if I love them. But when you open up the presentation, the first thing it does is it suggests layouts for you. So here I'm in the layout, and this is a cute one. There's a student feedback one, and all you do is when you find something you like, you just drag that in, and that's your cover slide, right? You can change a lot of times the colors by just clicking on something and changing the color here. I mean, it makes you look like so well put together. It makes your work look so well put together. And then when I'm in here, I just create by using different shapes. So all my graphic organizers are just shapes. Maybe I'll change the background there, and you can resize. And then that, when you're finished, just gets downloaded as a JPEG and inserted into slides, PowerPoint, Seesaw, whatever you're working with. Book Creator is another place where you can do these interactive notebooks. So it makes me look smart, and I'm really happy for Canva. Some Canva tools here, if I flip back over. I have no eye for color and no eye for fonts, and Canva takes both of those mysteries out of life for you. I've got a couple links here. Here's the color palette. I'll do the color one first. Well, the color palette generator will let you upload a photo, and then it will tell you what pictures are in the photo. That's pretty impressive. We also have the Canva color palette. So a lot of times, like my district's color, one of their colors is blue. So I'll like search blue and see what, maybe I'm going to pick this blue, and it will give me all kinds of color combinations that go well with blue, because like I said, I am not good at picking colors. You could also use this to decorate your house, which I would have known about a couple years ago, and then our whole house wouldn't have been blue. The other thing that's awesome here is they have an education area where you can read different articles about ways to use Canva to share your message. Great for advocacy. You guys need to be shouting to the rooftops all the awesome stuff you're doing and sharing and amplifying your students' voices. And this will give you ideas for how you can do that. And then here's the font combination tool. Again, fonts, total mystery to me. I hate to say it, but I tend to use Arial a lot, Calibria, or however you say that. So all you do is you start with a cool looking font, like, oh, this is a fun one for school, right? Comic. And then it will show you different combinations of fonts that you can use. So here it's suggesting you use a font called Quicksand. Or I should be able to check out other font combinations. So awesome, amazing hack. Thank you, Canva, for that. And then there's lots of tutorials. Resources, I have some posts here that I've done, some presentations. As long as you have this presentation, feel free to check out those resources. Again, email me if you want anything that I've got. I give it away freely because we all make it better together. All right, so I just have, are there any questions on interactive notebooks before I switch gears into some PBL stuff? Oh, Kelly, you're gonna get hooked, and don't blame me if you become, I'm looking at the chat, sorry, you're gonna get hooked, and don't blame me if you get addicted. Like, you can tag me and blame me later if you want, really, and I will accept responsibility for it, but it's amazing. You have to check it out. I don't know if there's any questions. I'm just kind of keeping my eye on the chat just in case. So as I mentioned with interactive notebooks, we use interactive notebooks to guide project-based learning. So what'll happen is a lot of times working with teachers, I might help them develop an interactive notebook, or we'll work as a group, like the librarian, myself, and art teacher. Our art teacher designs really just drool-worthy interactive notebooks. And so what happens is the kids get an interactive notebook that they use on their device. And then when they're with the librarian, they can do all the research they need and get all the input from the librarian there, as the librarian sort of guides them, either maybe through Google Classroom, or we use Schoology. So Schoology is a great tool for that. Or they might just come over and look over the kid's shoulder. Or you can print these interactive notebooks out for project-based learning and have them use it paper, pencil-wise, if you're not a one-to-one school. So the interactive notebook gives you a place where all the teachers who are collaborating on this can see what's happening for the student. And it's a really great way to pace students through project-based learning. So I'm going to kind of switch gears into project-based learning. And for project-based learning, I'm not going to take a ton of time because I want Katie to get all of her time. If you guys check out the next resource that I have here, I have another bit.ly. And to get this presentation so that you have all the links, all the graphics or whatever that you need is bit.ly /KY Go Digital PBL, and that's all lowercase. So that's how you can get the resources here for PBL. So I'm like just passionate about project-based learning. When I was a librarian, it changed everything for me. I did project-based learning out of the library to just kind of show people that it can happen and that kids can really engage in authentic research, and that it can just, change the whole dynamic of learning for students. It really takes the teacher out of the center and puts the student in the center and helps them deeply connect with content. I used it as a way to teach research because I found, like, if I said, okay, everybody, we're going to learn about animals in this almanac, it wasn't very engaging. Kids would check out. But if I said, okay, if I presented them with a question and said, okay, how can we build a habitat to help monarchs survive? Then suddenly it became a goal. And so project-based learning is just, I can't go on enough about it, really. So it's great for the library because you can lead from the library with PBL and demonstrate it if you're on a fixed schedule, for example. You could just take kids through a PBL. It will take a whole quarter because it takes a long time. Or if you have, a bestie that's a classroom teacher, you can grab that teacher and convince them to collaborate with you, and you can help them through the research process and creating the driving question and curating resources and teaching students those skills, and really create some dynamic collaboration that way. So just to talk a little bit about project-based learning, I asked, or I did a little research, like school projects. And when you research on Google school projects, the number one thing, or the top list, is always like posters, PowerPoints, foldables, displays, collages, trifold boards. Science fair comes up. Mobiles, lap books, displays, videos. These are all school projects. But I grabbed like all my family in a very unscientific research method. And I put it out to them on Facebook, and I said, okay, people in the working world, when you hear project, what do you think of? And they came back with things like tasks, milestones, timelines, challenges, brainstorming, deadlines and deliverables, budgeting, group roles, software implementation, website development. Like, you can see just from this list, like, there's a pretty big disconnect in what we think of as projects in school and what we think of as projects in the workplace. So when we do project-based learning, that really helps to kind of bridge that gap between school and the real world. And you get some amazing outcomes as a result of project-based learning. So this is super content heavy. Like, you don't want to put this in a PowerPoint. I am not going to read this to you. You can totally come back and check out this graphic. I just used this with teachers to try to establish what the difference is between projects, project-based learning, service learning, and Genius Hour, because we always get kind of confused about what is what. And just in short, a project is replicated year after year after year. It's teacher directed, there's step-by-steps, there's a rubric that goes along with it. But project-based learning changes based on student choice and voice. It includes a ton of formative assessment, but not all projects at the end look the same. You're not going to be able to send this home to a parent and have the parent return with their student 2 weeks later with a diorama or something like that. So that's the big difference there. And service learning is really based on needs in the community. Sometimes it's project-based learning, and sometimes it has an element of project-based learning, but sometimes it's just, somebody coming and saying, like, our school needs a new bench and we're going to build it, or we are working with the animal shelter on a collection, and that's just something we're doing around winter break. or we're going to collect gloves for our homeless shelter this winter. So that's service learning is different just because it's often very directed. And then of course you have Genius Hour, and Genius Hour, the big difference here is with Genius Hour is it is led by the student. Project-based learning is led by the standards and the learning targets, and Genius Hour is led by whatever a student's passionate about. So those are just the big kind of differences. With PBL, this is sort of the gold standard PBL that BIE talks about. There's a driving question, and it begins with a driving question that is usually based on a standard. And that's how we get our content into it. We develop a list of need to knows. There's a period of inquiry and innovation, which is super messy in the middle, but that's where the librarian can totally lead from the library. Talk to the teacher about Big Six, Super 3, guided inquiry, all of these like great formats for research and real quality research and thinking. There's student voice and choice throughout the process. The students are looking at appropriate tools. They're figuring out the project or the way to demonstrate their learning, and it looks different. So again, that's pretty messy. It involves 21st century skills with the 4 C's, critical thinking, creativity, communication, collaboration. And then we have feedback, revision, and a public presentation. With PBL, we're always looking for an authentic audience. And you also have to scale that to your students' needs. So if your students are elementary, if you think about rings of responsibility, they're probably just going to be presenting to their class or their school, or maybe they'll bring in parents from outside. And as you get older, we scale that out to meet the needs of our audience or meet the needs of our learning targets. So a middle school might be working with community members more. High school might be working with community, and they might reach out to the world. So you really scale that based on age and appropriateness of the project. And it doesn't always have to be like the world, although there's lots of ways for us to do connect with the world using Twitter and Instagram and things like that. Some of the projects that I've done in first grade, I did a lot with first grade in the beginning because they're just little sponges and they're super excited about everything. One of the projects we did in the very beginning, this was one of my first, was we did an author study, and I just made it project-based learning. So instead of me telling them everything they needed to know about an author, which in this case was Tommy DiPiola, the kids researched him using Pebble Go. And then I got out all his books that we had in the library, and they picked the books they were most interested in reading. And we did an analysis of all the characters and settings. And so through that process, they learned in depth about character setting. They compared and contrasted. They identified key features. And then they put together projects to demonstrate their learning that we shared and shared with the school and put on display. I had kids make stuffed animals. We had them use model magic to make characters out of that. And they had to try to match character details from the book in their learning there. And then we did a collaborative Lego build of one of the settings in Tommy DiPiola's books. And over a number of weeks, the kids would sketch out this Lego table, his chalkboard paint, and they would sketch out what it needed to look like and what had to happen. So these are first graders who built these amazing replicas of the setting, and they at deep levels understood the character and understood the setting and how Tommy DiPiola worked to achieve those things. So that was one of our first ones. Kids had a blast, and it was better than me just standing up there and telling them what to do next. We also did a lot of different things for authors who were visiting. The kids would learn about the author so that they could share with the school who was going to be visiting. And then they would develop projects to welcome the author to our school. So we had Raina Telegemeyer come visit, and they painted pumpkins because it was around Halloween. They painted pumpkins like the Sisters cover, and we displayed those out in front of the school. We had Clark the Shark author Bruce Hale come and visit, and they decided to make our front entryway into the library look like a shark. And this was all kid made. They cut out all the pieces, they cut all the teeth, they looked at the book and decided how it needed to go. And then I was just the person who taped it up high. They had to tape all the other stuff. So that was another really effective in-library PBL that we did. I also had fourth graders do a number of different choice projects. They could learn about aquaponics. They could learn about Google Cardboard and try to make their own. They could learn how to save monarch butterflies and build a butterfly garden. We got a grant for that, and the kids actually put it all together. I'll show you on the next slide. And then I had a couple other kids who were super interested in coding, learn Python, and program a Raspberry Pi to tweet. No idea. I have no idea how they did it. So they were definitely beyond me on that. Here is some information about the kids building a raised bed garden. If you have this presentation, if you click here, it will take you to a blog entry that details like step by step the standards, the driving question, and things like that. So I mean, that is there for you to kind of check out and learn about. What you need to know as you're getting into project-based learning or thinking about getting into project-based learning is that it's student-centered. You're going to become a learner on the side, and it's a little terrifying to kind of let the kids go. You will also have to front load the work. So I would spend weeks, designing notebooks, designing learning activities, designing an entry event. And then I would kind of just take a break and let them work and just conference with them. And so that it sort of moved all my planning into big chunks of time instead of spread out over every day. And then it also allows you to break down the walls. Like I got to work with our community extension office from UK on building that butterfly garden. We had a lot of parents come in. As we're developing things for first grade, the first grade teachers started to come in and I started working with them on biomimicry units. And now as a coach, I can see really that there's been a lot of benefits to that. The librarian who is at Johnson now, Marie Zimmerman, does an amazing job of collaborating with our first grade teachers. Biomimicry, she does something with then and now. She does stuff with fifth grade. She really hits all the grades in collaborating on project-based learning. It's just a fantastic thing. So breaking down those walls and collaborating is amazing. For project design, your first thing that you'll do is you'll start with your high impact targets as far as standards go. You're going to plan your formative assessments throughout, like what are your checkpoints? What are your timelines? What might your project look like and how will the kids know they did a good job? You're going to brainstorm your non-negotiables. You'll design an entry event, set timelines and milestones, reach out to collaborators and seek feedback. Don't do this in isolation. If you're going to start a project and you're like, I'm going to start PBL, email me. I'm happy to talk through a project with you. If you just stick with yourself, you'll find it a lot harder. So, through this design project process, if you're going to do it, and I'm seeing Katie saying, we should recreate that butterfly garden. Yes. And email me. I'm happy to help you talk through that. I use a PBL planning guide. It's in Google Slides. You just go through, you type in all your information. I think I have a link to this somewhere. If I don't, email me. I will send you the planning guide, and that's a good tool to talk through with somebody and get your ideas. For your project implementation, you want to have a project space. Google Classroom is good. We use Schoology. You might build a Google site. Shameless plug. I'm doing a little session on that later. You'll teach fundamentals. Like for me, I was always teaching fundamentals of research, Big Six research. We would do an intro to Big Six, and then every class period, I would give a little mini lesson on how to use a different source. You'll introduce technology skills for the students. you know, if you're trying to do this at a library, all of a sudden they might be using Classroom with you and they weren't using Classroom before. So that's something to think about. You'll have an entry event. The entry event is usually like a video. It might be a guest speaker. You might do a Google Hangout with another class. There's all different kinds of things to do for entry events. And within, I'd say, a digital notebook, you have timelines, milestones, and formative assessments. Huge, huge thing to do. Have the kids identify what their role is going to be in the group and what their goal is going to be. We did a PBL a few years ago for 3D printing. And what would happen was there were 4 kids in a group, and 1 kid would be doing all the work and 3 would be looking. And so what I did was I just stopped everything and I came back together and I was like, guys, we've got to come up with some roles here so you all are working. And they had ideas about what their group roles should be. And we established what their, you know, somebody was going to be a summarizer, somebody was going to be a designer, somebody was going to be a speaker for the group. And through that, they got a lot more out of the project. And so definitely establishing group roles and goals is a critical thing to do to keep everybody on task. And then you just want to implement and model whatever your sustained inquiry process is. So if it's Big 6, you're going to model how to do research, and check in with them often. Use those commenting features that Lauren showed us in Google Classroom to keep the kids on track and to help them find quality information. I do have 4 examples here where you would just click on these links and it will take you out to a detailed overview of different projects. That one doesn't look right when I figure. So I have some first grade links. There's a 3rd grade entrepreneurship where it details exactly like what they did. 2nd grade did folk tales. That would be a good one to use in library even. And 5th grade did some good science stuff. So you can just click on these and get an overview. I'm going to skim down here to my favorite resources. If you want to learn more, BIE is the place to go. I've read lots and lots of books, BIE. Teach Thought, love Teach Thought. If you go to their blog, there's lots of PBL stuff there. Call to Pedagogy, when you go to the Call to Pedagogy site, just search project-based learning. And then Edutopia has a fantastic collection of resources with videos. So, you know, if you're just getting started and you need a place to start, those are my top 4. And I only have like 2 minutes left. Does anybody have any questions? Any questions that you want me to answer right now? And again, if we kind of run out of time, you can totally email me, send me a tweet, and I'm happy to just, you know, give everything I have for this. I'm not seeing anything come in through the chat. So if there aren't any questions in the chat, I am going to mute myself and mute my video so Katie can talk all about STEAM. I'm so excited to see this. See this.
Yay, can we hear me?
Yep, we gotcha.
Can you guys hear me?
See this? I can hear you.
Yay, can we hear me?
I can hear you, but can't see you.
Can you guys hear me? Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. I didn't realize there was such a delay. So I'm just going to.
I can hear you, but can't see you.
Kick off. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. I didn't realize there was such a delay. So I'm just going to.
I can hear you, but can't see you.
Kick off.
Can you guys hear me?
Okay.
I can hear you.
I see me, but I don't know why you don't see me. Okay. As long as you tell me you see me, I'm okay. I am Katie Newton, and I am going to talk all about the makerspace. I dove into makerspacing 3 years ago, and have never looked back. Lots of things to learn, things not to do over again. So I'm happy to share that with you so you don't step in those potholes along the way. Let me see here if I can share my screen. Oh, where'd it go? Okay. I'm the one to have the technical difficulties. That's okay.
If you click on your presentation, we should all be able to see
Why
that.
is it going crazy?
Such a weird delay.
I don't know what that did.
You have to minimize your this window, and then when you were just on your browser, we could see that. Now click on your presentation.
Okay. I'm not doing something correctly.
If you click on the presentation,
Anybody wants to tell me where I'm clicking?
Up at the top, there's it says full steam.
What am I doing wrong?
So you have two windows right now, and you want to click on the tab that says full steam ahead, and then we should just see your.
Can you dial 116? Stacy dial 116.
Sorry, guys.
Stacy, please come to the admin office. Stacy.
We can see your screen now if you just press on presentation.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Okay. I hope that I'm here. I hope that I'm talking in the right place. I've had to mute everything else so that my
This is it.
computer will work. Apparently our network is on summer break as well. So I'm going to dive in here and just keep talking. So I started our makerspace. I had been researching makerspaces. I've been reading about it, and there's 5,000 different ways you can start a makerspace. But when we took our 8th graders on a tour of our early college and career ready high school facility, I had a student ask me, why does this matter? Well, it matters that they have the opportunity to go through a plethora of different pathways, and they didn't know about it. So I couldn't believe that these kids didn't know about what our new Early College and Career Readiness Center offered them, offering them culinary arts to auto tech and welding and IT, to nursing and phlebotomy and sports medicine. There's tons of opportunities for the kids out at this nice giant facility that they just they didn't know what it means. So from that day forward, it mattered that our kids had a place to explore and create and play with different things that might lead up to them going to EC3 and diving into those pathways to see if they even like it, to see if they like welding or information technology or culinary arts or things like that. So the very first thing I read was this Worlds of Making book by Laura Fleming. She's a great person to follow on Twitter if you're not already following her. She's a great leader in the makerspace world and puts out very practical writings on how to start it. So I just started reading the Kickstart Guide to the Making a Great Makerspace for setting up my new idea for a makerspace. I'll show you my book here in a minute. I've already written on the front, JTA's Makerspace Grows Up. So this is the basics of how we started. So I had zero admin support whenever we jumped into the maker world. Nobody around here knew what I was talking about. Nobody really wanted to listen about what I was talking about because they didn't know what I was talking about. So I had to show them. We started very small. We started with coloring. You can see right there, they're coloring bookmarks. That was their very first trip to the library 3 years ago. They checked out books and then they got to color bookmarks. If you notice on the table, there's an article about why coloring is important. I always tried to, when we implemented a new thing in our makerspace, when I got my hands on new items or things like that, I always had an article to relate to them what they're doing, why they're doing it, why are we coloring. Coloring is a very important thing for the kids to still do. It's a very relaxing thing for them to do, to let their brain calm down and then go back to class and get started again. So coloring is still huge in our makerspace. Some of that has turned into digital art. The kids are starting to get their hands on doing some digital art, which is great. So that's led into lots of fun little things. Second, I scavenged and hunted for all the things, the toilet paper rolls, the paper towel rolls, the rubber bands, pipe cleaners, puff balls, crayons, markers, all kinds of things. I sent out an email to teachers and said, send me all your stuff. They were leaving for the summer, and, you know, teachers clean out all their junk before they leave anyway. So I sent out an email and said, give it all to me. So I filled up 2 filing cabinets with teacher trash, essentially, and used it to then start our projects. We started with taking it back to my public library days, where I used to do I used to get to do story time with them. And so you always story time and then make something. With middle schoolers, I can't read an entire book in one time. So I would book talk some of our older book sets that weren't getting any love anymore, and pair a STEM project with them, using all my junk. So everything was free. And all the while trying to build stations and build spaces by getting my hands on actual maker toys like Dash and Dot and the Makey Makey and Little Bits. So my tech director in my district found out what I was doing and saw what I was doing. And he actually purchased for us snap circuits and Makey Makeys and Little Bits. And that really kicked off our space along with art. Once you start adding more and more and more to your space, there is a time and place to organize it. I'll show you a picture of how I organize it later, and I share how I label everything at the end of this session. I share how the stickers I put on everything and the shelves and all that good stuff. Now I'm able to give the kids student choice. When they come into the space, they check out books and then they can move into the makerspace. They just go to the shelf and pick up what they want to play with and create with, and they take it back to a table and do it. The big rule in the makerspace is you cannot ask Miss Newton how to do something. They have to figure it out. So they usually work together and do some great collaboration. When something new shows up, they figure it out and figure out how to do it. Then I always try to keep up with student feedback. And I ask them about 3 times a year, what's going well, what's not going well, what can we do to change it, what can I purchase for the space that they'd like to see more of, how can we better behave in the space. I always remind them of behaving in the space and picking things up and putting them away. So last year went really well, not this year, this past year, the last year. I was here the full year. Went really great in terms of taking care of the stuff and taking care of the space. So the student feedback helps keep them accountable, and it keeps me accountable for tracking all the good stuff. So like I said, we started with book talks. I'm just using the things that we already have in our space that just wasn't getting touched. So it's a great way to put good quality literature in their hands, if that's how you need to start out, and then do something fun. You can see down there we did the K and Island of the Blue Dolphins. And then I brought in all of my seashells, because what else am I doing with all my seashells that are in a giant drawer, just taking up space in my house? So I brought them all in and ended up having like 15 baggies worth of seashells. So they partnered up in 15 different tables and got to create anything that they would use to pass their time. The prompt was, how would you pass your time if you were stuck on a desert island? So I provided them seashells, and they made mandalas. There was even a student that made a dice game with the seashells. How the seashells fell was how you got to play the game. He had a nice crowd around his table leading them in his dice game. That was fun to see. And then for Halloween, we did in the Haunted Houses of Kentucky book there, there's a Hardin County ghost story. So I read the ghost story, which they loved. And then they got toothpicks and marshmallows, which marshmallows were the only thing I bought that year. And you can get marshmallows at Walmart for like 52 cents for the little minis. And so I might have spent $4 for my 675 students to move through the marshmallows in 3 days. So that was not bad. And they had to build something spooky. So they built whatever they could build with toothpicks and marshmallows, which is not a ton because marshmallows don't really hold up well. And then we did catapults. And as we were doing catapults, that was about December. And my tech guy was starting to pay attention and order me fun things. So we got new fun things after we did catapults. But catapults were great. The students had to bring their own cylinder. And I gave them a spoon and 2 rubber bands, which I confiscated from my office. As rubber bands are free in the office, right? All your office supplies are free when you go to the office and get them out of the drawers. So that's what we did. And after we came back from break, we started moving into more of a space that looked like this. So I started organizing, and I label everything with the colors of the rainbow. One big reason is because you always remember your colors. I can put 15 different signs up in my library and nothing ever happens because my middle schoolers don't read signs. They don't want to read anything. So I color coded everything. So at least whatever color you see on an item, there's a color on the shelf behind it. So when they take it off the shelf and go to a table and play, when I say it's time to pick up, they pick it up and bring it back to the matching color. I haven't had any issues with them not knowing their colors so far. So that's worked really well. And our makerspace really wouldn't grow as quick as it did without using Donors Choose. If your school district allows you to use the Donor Choose platform, go for it and run with it, because it's an amazing opportunity to get things for your classroom that we as teachers just can't afford. I mean, I would never be able to afford 5 sets of Magnetiles and feed my new baby at the same time. So I would never be able to afford 3 Spheros and 5 Ozobots and 6 sets of Bloxels all at one time either. That was just crazy. But that's the Donors Choose that I was awarded this year in moving toward more robotics in our space. We also have had games in our space. If you notice over there, the purple tags are on like Connect 4 and some just different games. We don't call them games. We call them competitive strategies because we don't go to school to play games. We go to school to learn how to compete. Just like we don't read comic books, we read graphic novels when we go to school. So I changed up the name of board games a little bit and put them in the space. Those will actually be leaving our space this year. They will not be out every time the kids come. Being on maternity leave and being out of my space this year, the kids really just destroyed those. So they won't be making a comeback when they come back in August. They don't know that yet, though. The biggest don'ts are, don't worry about the mess. You can set up an organized system and your classroom expectations, and the kids will rise to the occasion as long as you don't have a sub for 6 months. So the kids will be excited to be in the space and have the opportunity to play. Play is just so important, I think, for any age level, especially these middle schoolers, which are trying to figure themselves out, and their little brains just go every which way on any given day. And this gives them a space to be silly. Our space is very loud, and they get to be silly, and they get to create, and they get to do fun things. So don't be nervous about jumping in. Go for it. And the other big thing is, do not allow students to tear apart monitors. That is a giant no-no. But you see how excited my kids are in the space to do it. I'm so glad none of them were shocked to death. I am very thankful that nobody got hurt in the 2 class periods that happened. I had one of our custodians was, I had posted it on Instagram and Twitter on our school channels, like, hey, look what our kids are doing. They're having so much fun. And he messaged me right back and said, get those screwdrivers out of their hands. Katie, you can't do that. So thank you, Marcus, for saving our children's lives. But those are my 2 big no's and don't do's. Like, just don't worry. You are going to pick up things off the floor. They're middle schoolers, they're elementary schoolers. They just genuinely don't see it. I remind them all the time, let's pick it up. I'm always walking through the space. Make sure you have all your parts. And it really works. It does really work, as long as you are not out for a giant maternity leave like I was this year. So our makerspace has really turned into a respected place by my peers, which was my ultimate goal. The teachers use the space. I have other teachers than the language arts teachers that come and check out books, that come and check out the library space. I have math teachers that come into the space and use it as writing prompts to relate it to their math homework. I have science teachers that come in and use the space and use it as a writing prompt to relate it to their science work. Teachers are starting to check out the toys to take them back to class to use them as examples for whatever they're teaching. And now our admin is seeing the fun and the playfulness in the space, and they did plan a couple school-wide maker activities for the school year, which was super exciting to see them take a hold of that. So I've linked here, and you should have links to all these in the presentation. The sign labels and the sign that I put on all of our maker tables, it's always asking them, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? Things like that. So when administration does walk in and they do a walkthrough in the library, they can ask the students, what are you doing? Why is you coloring so important today? Why is you making this spiral ball roll down the hallway without an agenda important today? And the kids can always answer those questions because I've clearly labeled every item for them to be able to speak academically about what they're doing in the space. They also lose their space when behavior just goes awry. Usually it's 7th graders. I don't know why, but I've had to take the makerspace away twice from 7th grade. So I take all the fun robots and blocks and Legos and games away from them when they walk in the space. It's usually really dramatic. I take craft paper and cover the shelves and say closed for business, and they get really sad when they walk in because they don't think I'm going to follow through with my threat of taking it away. So then they remember I told them the last time they come that the next time they will not have it. So they get really sad, but I always have them do something with their hands when they come in the space, and they usually end up having a ton of fun. But these makerspace activities are totally no tech, and they have to usually work as a team to speak kindly to each other. That's usually the biggest reason why I take it away, is they're not being nice to each other and they're not sharing. So these throwback activities are great for those times when you need to slow down and take all the toys out of their hand. You're more than welcome to follow me on Twitter or hashtag JTALMC. I post everything that we do in the space, not just our makerspace. When I do a book tasting or any kind of book activity with the kids, I'm always taking picture and showcasing that for our community to see, for my stakeholders to see. And honestly, it's helped to make the makerspace what it is today, because my teachers and my district level leaders are seeing it and seeing the good things that we are doing in the space. So there's also a list of other good things to follow: KYL Chat, KY Ed Chat, KY Go Play, KY Go Digital. Our HCS Innovate is a great platform to watch and see innovative things happening all over our district as well. So I feel like I ran through that. I really hope you saw the whole thing. I'm looking at the chat. Did you do the same activities with all grade levels? When I first started, yes. I did the same activities when I was doing the book talking and the little STEM activities. And I quickly realized that I was not going to get to use any of that the next year other than for my 6th graders. So I quickly had to build more stations, I guess. I called them stations there at the beginning. Now it's just the giant shelf that you see, and the kids pick whatever they want anytime they come in. There's no rhyme or reason to it. There's plenty of stuff now that they can share. They work together. The big thing is they have to work it out. I don't listen to whining. Middle schoolers can be really good at the whine. So I don't do that. I don't listen to it. They have a second to figure it out, or I go and literally take the thing out of their hands and give it to someone else in the room. And they don't like that. So it usually takes one time. Are there any other questions about making? When I do the student feedback, I'm always utilizing Google Forms as much as I can, just because it's so quick and easy to ask them 3 questions: what's going well, what's not going well, what do you want to see more of in the space? And I can get that feedback and read it, at my leisure, or read it to my baby as her book for the evening.
Kelly has a question. She says next year will be her first year as an LMS.
First step in building the makerspace.
Yep.
I really just say go for it. Add some STEAM activities into your book talking. That worked really great for me, to have kids doing hands-on projects. And doing those STEAM projects, I really utilized Pinterest to find anything that related to the book that I was sharing.
I would also add that Katie mentioned that she read Worlds of Making. So reading books like Worlds of Making and Invent to Learn will give you lots of ideas. But I also suggest maybe conducting a needs assessment. Find out where your gaps are at the school.
Of course, if you have a budget, go buy all the things. A great place to purchase things is Barnes & Noble. They've really gotten into the maker movement. And with your school account, you get 20% off. And 20% off expensive Sphero it really does help.
I'd also say that if your school does Scholastic book fairs, they've thrown a lot of tools on there. So if you have Scholastic dollars from previous book fairs, they have the entire carts and stuff to help you organize it. But they also will throw on different products as well. And so I know that you could buy those that way, and maybe even go to a nearby school and observe and see what's working in their school, what's not, to get some ideas too. I'm one of those people, I have to see it firsthand to see how it works, and then talk to teachers and see how to make it work for us at our school. So those are my suggestions too.
Okay, we have just a little bit longer, and I don't know if anybody has any burning questions out there about maker spaces, about STEAM in the library, about project-based learning, or about ways that you can give.
Kelly has a question. She says next year will be her first year as an LMS.
First step in building the makerspace.
Yep.
I really just say go for it. Add some STEAM activities into your book talking.
Sorry guys, we're getting a lot of weird delays, I think. I said that like 3 minutes ago.
Mentioned that she read Worlds of Making. So reading books like Worlds of Making and Invent to Learn will give you lots of ideas. But I also suggest maybe conducting a needs assessment. Find out where your gaps are at the school.
Of course, if you have a budget, go buy all the things. A great place to purchase things is Barnes & Noble. They've really gotten into the maker movement. And with your school account, you get 20% off. And 20% off expensive Sphero it really does help.
I'd also say that if your school does Scholastic book fairs, they've thrown a lot of tools on there. So if you have Scholastic dollars from previous book fairs, they have the entire carts and stuff to help you organize it. But they also will throw on different products as well. And so I know that you could buy those that way, and maybe even go to a nearby school and observe and see what's working in their school, what's not, to get some ideas too. I'm one of those people, I have to see it firsthand to see how it works, and then talk to teachers and see how to make it work for us at our school. So those are my suggestions too.
Okay, we have just a little bit longer, and I don't know if anybody has any burning questions out there about maker spaces, about STEAM in the library, about project-based learning, or about ways that you can get.
Kelly has a question. She says next year will be her first year as an LMS.
First step in building the makerspace.
Yep.
I really just say go for it. Add some STEAM activities into your book talking.
Sorry guys, we're getting a lot of weird delays, I think. I said that like 3 minutes ago. So I think maybe the people who are live need to pause the video
and Invent to Learn will give you lots of ideas. But I also suggest maybe
if you have two screens open, pause the
assessment.
video.
Find out where your gaps are at the school.
Of course, if you have a budget, go buy all the things. A great place to purchase things is Barnes & Noble. They've really gotten into the maker movement. And with your school account, you get 20% off.
Aaron Weaver says it's like the movie Groundhog Day. It is. It's so. I hope we hear that 4 more times now. Are we catching up? I don't know if you guys are hearing me in real time. Could somebody give me an affirmative? Does anybody have any other questions? I'm sorry, I keep asking that. Yeah. Oh, yay. Aaron says real time. Awesome. Okay. So if anybody has any other questions, I know there was like all this like weird stuff happening. But I will say back to the like starting a makerspace stuff, start with your why. That's the best place to start. Figure out what your school needs and ways to fill that gap and ways to move forward. For me, I needed NGSS stuff, so STEAM, and also project-based learning. The makerspace is fantastic for project-based learning. Outside of that, do we have any other big questions? I have already received some emails, like people asking for materials. If you can be specific, if you need PBL stuff or digital interactive notebook stuff, that will help. And then over the next few days, I'll just send you stuff. Okay, so the chat is getting pretty quiet. Might take an early lunch. We will be back this afternoon, I think, with Casey Bell at noon. Is that right, Lauren? Yeah, you're muted.
There we go. I think it's 12:30.
12:30. Oh yeah, you're right. 12:30.
And then 12:30 will start us off again.
Yep. 12:45 are the create and share sessions, so you can take a deeper dive into lots of different things. There are people sharing about Google Slides. We've got I'm doing Google Sites, interactive notebooks, and something else. I forget what it is. This afternoon. Oh, digital storytelling. How did I forget that? This afternoon. So you can pop in and see just a deeper dive into different topics there. If you go back to the agenda link that they've been tweeting out, and hopefully you got in your email, you can pick out some different sessions. Those are only like 30, 35 minutes, and it's raining all day, guys. So hop on and learn something cool. Keep sharing with the KY Go Digital hashtag. And of course, if you're doing library stuff, we love it when you add the KYL chat hashtag. And if you play to learn something new, try KY Go Play. There's all kinds of ways for you to connect, share, learn, grow, and do cool stuff for kids. That's the goal. Let's do cool stuff for kids. Break those silos. Does anybody else have anything you want to add? All right. Well, I hope to see you guys this afternoon or however that works virtually. Thank you for joining in and taking your morning with us. Hopefully people are in their PJs. I'm finishing my second cup of coffee and I'm going to make a third one for this afternoon. So I'll see you guys later.